if you're a real journalist and you want to get news out of Kenny Omega, go to Kenny Omega's Twitch feed and just ask him while he's playing a video game and he's not paying attention. But he spoke on his involvement in Brawl Out. He said getting CM Punk's dog Larry to safety was paramount to him, so he did that. He tried to dissolve the situation, but he just couldn't. It was just way too chaotic. He said some interesting stuff. I'm not going to play the full 4 minutes, but here you go.
The way that I wanted to go about things wasn't necessarily the way that other people wanted to. It was also the way that other people necessarily didn't want to. And then it was also maybe not the way that the boss wanted to take care of it. And I also thought of myself as a liability because I don't want to say old school. I'm not old school. I've just played a lot of contact sports and I've gotten into jiu-jitsu and boxing and mixed martial arts. I just know that sometimes when you perform or when you fight, when everything's on the line, when you give your heart, when you give your soul towards something, and you're in that moment of high stress or high anxiety, where you've maybe emptied the tank and you're just physically exhausted, that was actually very impressive. A good punish.
Yeah. Good punish.
When in an environment like that, sometimes emotions get the best of you and people will want to throw hands. And in the case, and I'm unfortunately or fortunately a believer of it, I think if it's decided that, hey, this is the best way to solve things and you can shake hands after and move on after, I'm a believer. I'm actually a believer of fighting. I am. And that sounds terrible to say, and which is why, like, don't make me an EVP in 2024. You know, you can't do
that. That's really what I wanted to get to, is that line right there. So Kenny Omega, he ends up going on to say that him and CM Punk are fine, and they have been fine for a long time. And we talked about that on our show. Mm-hmm. Like shortly after it happened, like Kenny Omega was fine with CM Punk the whole time. This is really an issue between the Bucks and CM Punk, and he's kind of more along the lines of CM Punk because he has played real sports before, and he kind of knows what it's like when testosterone gets a little bit high. Sometimes you just got to throw hands, and then afterwards, you know, it's like dudes being dudes, just call it good afterwards and just go do business, you know. So I thought that was like, he kind of, I don't want to say he's breaking from the Young Bucks. That's not what he's doing. He's not throwing anybody under the bus, but he is like acknowledging that he is completely fine with CM Punk, and he would have been fine no matter what. And he also acknowledges that it's okay to just fight every once in a while if you're, you know, just two dudes being dudes.
I think we downplay that too much, especially, I don't want to say modern society or something that's stupid, but I mean, like, sometimes guys got to hash it out. We said that on our show numerous times, because you and I both tend to, you know, we probably swing more meathead than a lot of our contemporaries. Right. Yeah. And we've both been of the camp of they should talk this out, and they should be confrontational, because that's the only way to fix things. And I railed on Tony Khan pretty hard about the fact that he refused to do that and still refuses to do that. And I think that this idea of like being overly legal, and like we've heard from friends of ours that they got some bad legal advice from people, you know, that wound up exacerbating issues and not solving them. Like, I would rather you have a physical altercation that ends quickly and then you can move on, rather than you let bad things fester for, well, years. Right. Yeah. I know you and I differ from most of like I said, we differ from most of our contemporaries in that I grew up playing sports, man. Mm-hmm. You know, I wrestled, you know, at a pretty high level. And, you know, sometimes you get chirpy, but I mean, like we always say, leave it in the room. Leave it in the room, you know, and when you don't leave it in the room, then stuff boils over, right? And that's not healthy. And like the reality is like, and again, I'm real big on focusing on your emotions and mental health stuff, and like sometimes you need to release, and a lot of times men are stupid, and like we get physical, and like some guys don't do that, but some guys do. And to, you know, I always let people go, that kid, they were assaulted. The Young Bucks were assaulted. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, like, I mean, I know you've never been physical with anything in your life, but I mean, like, shit happens, dude. Like,
yeah. The funny thing is, like, after that, the All In footage got revealed last week, how many people were like, Jungle Boy got assaulted by CM Punk. It's like, no, he got pushed and he got his head squeezed. That's not assault, right? I mean, it's not nice, okay, but it's not like Perry was trying to get out of that confrontation, you know. And I'm not saying that Punk was innocent, but he was very much involved in that confrontation. He had a lot to do with that.
He didn't back down.
And he got, yeah, he didn't back down. He got shoved, and he came after CM Punk. We're gonna say oh, Perry assaulted CM Punk's leg when he tried to double it. Come on, stop.
You know what I'm gonna say? Good for Jack Perry.
Yeah, he gained my respect.
Well, I 100%. Like, I just again, maybe we're just different, right? Like, you and I grew up playing sports and stuff like that. Like, I truly believe that if you don't, I always talk about this with parents. Like, this is like wrestlers. I'm a wrestler. That's my an amateur wrestler. Like, that's my like culture, right? You either are or you aren't. You either enjoy the physical contact or you abhor it. And you find out pretty quickly if you're one side or the other. Because some people step on a wrestling mat and they like grab another dude and like, you know, start tussling. And they're like, man, I like this. This is like, it sparks something in you. Or you are repulsed by it. And like, you can't stand the violence. And that's okay too. There's two sides of that. But I think the one side has a hard time understanding where the other is coming from on both sides of the equation. And like, again, it's part of like this talking and communicating thing is like neither behavior is abhorrent. It's just different. Right. And some guys can fight and like bury it. And some guys cannot. The problem is like never solving the problem. Yeah. Right. And that is what Brawl Out really comes down to, is the problem was never to this day solved.
Yeah, no, it never was. Yeah, look, I have close relatives and good friends of mine. You know, sometimes we got into it playing football or, you know, wrestling in the backyard or, you know, whatever it was. Like, and then on my football team, there were several fights like during practice and stuff like that because somebody's trying to go too hard. Some, you know what I mean, or someone got a perceived cheap shot and they just kind of went after each other. You know, but I couldn't imagine being an NFL coach and like my star quarterback and my cornerback, the defensive back, getting into it and then firing the quarterback, right? It's just not gonna. Right. You're not gonna. Now, I'm not saying the CM Punk shouldn't have been fired, but I think a real leader, a real head coach would have like had that shit handled pretty quick. It's like,
that's
no, we're gonna do this behind closed doors. None of you idiots leak to the media. We're gonna take care of business. You know, we're gonna do it. And then now you guys got to go run gassers after practice for getting into an altercation. And then of course somebody would have got suspended. Like players get suspended for fighting. Like Draymond Green got suspended for punching one of his players, and he's back on the team. Well, Warriors are out of the playoffs, but he was back on the team, you know, not that long after. So, yeah, not that crazy. I kind of like that I can, because I always felt like Kenny Omega was a bit of an alien. He's like a little bit hard to figure out, and I just never thought that I had anything in common with him. And after hearing him talk, I still think now I'm like, okay, and now I kind of relate to this guy a little bit, you know what I mean? But he's just kind of a weird dude.
Yeah, Kenny is a weird dude, but he tells you he's a weird dude. Like he's like, I don't know, I kind of feel like kinship with Kenny Omega because he's an athlete who's also a super nerd, right? So like I always see Kenny and I'm like, dude, that's a guy, I'm cut from that cloth, right? Like I've always really liked Kenny Omega because he's got that, he's like Bret Hart in that he's got this wicked artistic side to him, but he's also an athlete, like a knockdown, drag out athlete. And then I don't know, man, that guy is built differently. And I've always respected it. And I'll be honest with you. If one were to go on Kenny Omega's Twitch stream and ask him a stupid question, please say you're from the Mike and JD show. Maybe he'll answer.
Yes.